So coming back to the agenda of inclusive growth and what India has to offer, the success of Chandrayaan3 is an example how with limited resources Indians can do so much, and that's an example that the entire world has very keenly watched. Another thing that invoked a lot of interest at G20 and it was much talked about is the kind of digital payment infrastructure India has been able to create with very limited resources, the deep penetration of it despite limited spending capacity of the Indians. When it comes to these examples, these models of growth and inclusiveness, do you think there's an example that the rest of the world can follow, the developed and the developing countries?
I'm sure. I think India has emerged as a role model. I mean, this is, as someone who is connected with the Ministry of Space, this is a question being asked day in and day out. Even during the G20 summit, most of the delegates were keen to understand how could we manage Chandrayaan at a cost of just 600 crore vis-a-vis the Russian mission, which was 16,000 crore, yet not successful as they had planned it to be. And that is because we have tried to make up for the financial resources through our cerebral resources. Lot much of diligence, lot much of brain work in strategizing our technology missions has been invested. So, like for example, even if you take the case of Chandrayaan, it was when it took off from here, it took the advantage of the gravitational forces, spent a lot of time, 10-20 times going around the Earth, in the orbit of Earth. Then finally it went into the lunar orbit, and then it was almost as much as about 40 circles around the moon. So we were in a way saving on fuel by strategizing our itinerary, though it took a little longer. So I think that is why I have now been saying this with a certain amount of conviction for quite some time, that India never lacked acumen, never lacked potential, never lacked the human resource, even in those days when we were devoid of resources complete. Now, of course, with Prime Minister Modi having come in, there's a lot much of investment happening in technology endeavors. We have the private sector opening up. The space, for example, has been opened up to all the stakeholders. We have as much as more than 150 startups. We have this Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which is going to give room to investment of as much as 60-70% from the non-government sources. All this has happened in the recent times with the path-breaking decisions taken by Prime Minister Modi. But even in those days when we were devoid of all this, we were not devoid of the human resource. And I think that's what makes us create these role models of cost-effective technology experiments. And also because we are a heterogeneous country, and we have learned to apply these technologies in heterogeneous conditions. Like for example, our Swamitva program, one of the finest examples, again being emulated by the world over, is being talked about, because you no longer need to access the revenue officers. You can map your farm, map your land. It's all space technology. Similarly, your DBT. Now, just remember, this Digital India was announced by Prime Minister Modi long before COVID happened, and nobody could foresee that COVID was in the offing. But when COVID actually happened, this proved to be a boon. So we were at an advantage compared to several other nations, because we had already created a mechanism by which we could transfer the money, even when the supply chains or the other mechanisms had faltered because of the COVID or had gone berserk because of the pandemic.